What is up, guys? Welcome to my early review of the latest Osgood Perkins film, The Monkey. Osgood Perkins is one of those newer names in horror, made a really big splash last year with his hit Longlegs, and is also, for those that don't know, the son of Anthony Perkins, Norman Bates himself. But he's a director that certainly has my curiosity. I haven't loved either of his films yet, was not a fan of Blackcoat's Daughter at all, way too slow for me. Longlegs, I did really like when I saw it. It just hasn't stuck with me as much, and there was a lot of things that frustrated me and puzzled me by the end of that one. When I heard this was going to be a horror comedy, I got a lot of interest and hope for this, because if Osgood Perkins is able to bring what he brought to things like Longlegs, and even to a degree The Blackcoat's Daughter, that darkness, that grit, that very edgy vibe that he has, but also counterbalance it with a really good sense of humor, this could easily end up being my favorite film of his and be the thing that instantly makes me a massive fan. So essentially the plot of this movie is that you have these twin brothers that end up in the possession of this little drumming monkey toy. And they realize that every single time that they turn the key and he does his little drumming thing, somebody around them randomly and horrifically instantly just dies. And so it becomes a bit of a Final Destination type vibe where just people are randomly dying through these crazy series of events, sometimes with a bit of that Rube Goldberg machine effect from Final Destination, but with a much more comedic, tongue-in-cheek, quirky vibe about it. The movie does release wide this coming Friday. I was able to check it out, luckily, a couple of days early at a sneak preview. And before I tell you whether or not I liked, loved, or hated the monkey, I can tell you that while the characters of the monkey are trying to dodge the curse of this monkey toy, you don't have to dodge the curse of having bland, unimaginative walls in your house if you check out the sponsor of today's video, Displate. Have you ever looked at a wall in your house and got depressed looking at such a blank and empty space? Well, with Displate, your walls can be your own multiverse. Displate is a unique metal poster designed to capture all your passions with over 2 million artworks available in both original designs and a ton of licensed designs from the likes of Star Wars, Marvel, Call of Duty, and many more. So whether you're trying to rep your favorite video games, the music artists that you love most, or the comic book heroes that you used to have on your pajamas, Displate always has something to suit your style. And with their newest innovation, Displate Textura, you can add even more style to your posters with tactile textures, 3D contours, and selective matte and gloss effects to make your wall art pop even more. And I know, adding wall art comes with the added frustration of measuring and hammering and drilling and putting holes in your walls that you'll have to fill if you decide to redecorate one day. Not with Displate. With Displate, you just stick the sticker leaf on the wall, the adhesive magnet onto the sticker, and finally, the Displate onto the magnet. No drills, no holes, no damage. And even better, you can swap your Displates anytime you want by just taking one off and slapping another one in its place. So if you're ready to add unlimited style to your living space, click the link in the video description and use my code CODY to get 25% off of one Displate and 35% off for 2 or more Displates. And those discounts do include Textura designs. And thank you so much to Displate for sponsoring today's video. Starting off with the positives for the monkey: carnage, fucking candy, baby. This movie is an absolute splatterfest. Now, a good bit of it does have CGI blood, but I think that it is done pretty well. But for having a film that the entire appeal is these gruesome, over-the-top comedic deaths, I think Osgood Perkins absolutely nails that. There are so many different ways that people die instantly and horrifically in this film. And just like with the best of the Final Destination franchise, the fans of those types of movies are just going to die laughing every single time we see the next creative way that somebody's going to have a dark fate in this movie, especially in like the first 45 minutes of the film. It's got such a sharp wit and cadence to the humor and the carnage in unison that I was rolling. I mean, it was like, this is going to be an awesome experience. I am dying laughing. I'm getting all the gore that my horror heart wants. And this is just an absolute blast. It goes for broke. It's as over the top gets. So don't expect to take this movie seriously at all, because it does not take itself seriously, but if you're a carnage whore, if you love the gore, and you know that I do, you're going to be eating good with The Monkey, because they go for it. Buckets and buckets of blood, even the digital kind. I really do like Osgood Perkins' visual style. I don't think that it's necessarily flashy, but it's got like this vintage feel to it. You know, it was very prevalent in Longlegs, where a lot of us felt like it was really tapping into that 90s serial killer movie. And, you know, this also has a very distinct style to it in the two different eras, because we have the two main characters as kids and then later on as adults. But his visual style and how his movies look just have this really crisp vintage feel to them that I enjoy, especially with something that's very fantastical and goofy and over the top like this. It's almost the directing style, the visual style, the cinematography, all of those things added together that like keeps it somewhat grounded, keeps it somewhat with this realistic feel to it, even though it's so outlandish. It's the look of the film that makes it feel real enough to have some impact. You also have a really fun cast here. You got Osgood Perkins himself in a small role. You've got Theo James as the adult version of our twin brother leads. Tatiana Maslany, who's somebody that I love, plays their mother as a kid. Elijah Wood's got a small role in here. So another really fun cast that fits this type of movie. You even have Rohan Campbell in here. So those of you Halloween Ends truthers, yeah, you get a little bit more of your boy Corey Cunningham here. And the last thing that I'll say is that I do have confidence that this movie is going to grow on me over time. I think it's going to be a movie that's going to be better or worse depending on the company that you're with when you watch it. I was in a theater with a number of people who were laughing the whole time, and so it was a good theater experience for the most part. And, you know, before I even get into any of my negatives, I enjoyed the concept of this movie a lot. Bringing Osgood Perkins' style to a Stephen King concept, showing his very witty, very sharp sense of humor. And I think that over time, as I revisit this, I'll appreciate some of the ends of the movie I didn't like as much on first watch, hopefully a little bit more. But with that said, moving into the negatives, this was an extreme mixed bag for me. I think that the movie in the first 45 minutes was firing on all cylinders. Like, I was instantly very happy, smiling ear to ear, laughing out loud, going, oh my God, this is fucking awesome. Horror comedy is alive and well in 2025. And somewhere around the hour mark throughout the rest of the film, I felt like the sense of humor lost its balance. I felt like it lost the edge and it lost the sharpness that it had in the first half or so of the film and just devolved into being really awkward, goofy, and quirky, which doesn't always work so well for me. Where the first act and even into the second act of the film, it was all about situational humor. It was, you know, editing tricks to really land and cut on really comedic moments to get a good laugh out of the audience. It was very sharp, and it had a really great hold on the comedic timing in the first hour. After that, it feels so scattershot. It feels like they're trying to do a lot of what they had in the first act with these over-the-top deaths, but by then you're kind of numb to it. That's not working as much anymore to get a laugh out of you because it's like the sixth person you've seen explode. And the characters suddenly become very cartoonish. The the brothers, when they're kids, are very over the top in a sense, but as kids, it kind of works. When you have the one that's so overbearingly bullyish, it fits a little more when you're looking at kids in a horror comedy. Then when you see them 30 years later, 20 years later, whatever it was, as adults, those dynamics just seem awkward. And I don't think it's Theo James' fault. It's not like he didn't do as good of a job as the kid at portraying two different versions of this character. But it was just something where they turned into such quirky versions of themselves, especially the more overbearing bully of the two brothers, that I just didn't care anymore. I didn't really like their dynamic. I wasn't invested in any kind of growth or reconciliation between those two characters. And so it just kind of became a numbing experience for the third act predominantly, where the style of humor and the sense of humor had just lost all of its steam.
Oh, fuck.
It also doesn't help that while this is a very fun concept, the movie doesn't really have a story. The story is exactly what I gave you in the premise. Two young kids discover this little toy monkey in their dad's possessions, and people start to die when they use it. So they throw it in a well, and then we find them 25 years later as adults, and people are starting to die again. So they're trying to figure out what the hell happened. Like, that's really as far as it goes, is just that premise. It's a setup. It's an inciting incident. It's not so much of a story. We don't really go through any kind of a character arc with any of these people. There's not really much of a narrative payoff by the end of it. A lot of the visuals and some of the things that we see right before the credits roll are so random and nondescript that I don't know what Osgood was going for there. Maybe he wasn't going for anything. Maybe he was going for something very specific. Maybe he threw out just a bunch of different ideas so that he could lead people down a bunch of rabbit trails, and whatever you come up with is your version of truth. Like, I have no idea. I had a friend of mine that watched this movie that swears it's like some kind of an allegory for the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and he gave me all of his explanations, and I was like, dude, like, I just read a whole paragraph, and I don't see that at all. Like, that doesn't add up for me whatsoever. Is that a brilliance on Osgood Perkins' part that two people can have such wildly different interpretations? Possibly. Or is it just that the movie is so random and nondescript that something as wild as that interpretation and another interpretation that I'll hear, or just feeling like it adds up to nothing, are all kind of valid and invalid in equal amounts because it's just random shit. And it also just felt like it was shifting tones too extremely in the last half too. Like, the first half really felt lighthearted. Even in the most gory moments, it felt very lighthearted. It gets really dark in the last half and very grim with the things that are being discussed, and, you know, certain character motivations being revealed, and even some of the things they're exploring with, like, the fate and the relationship between father and son and brothers. And it feels not as in balance, which I probably already said that in the third act, where things are supposed to be so silly and ridiculous and over the top, and they are, while they're simultaneously trying to get darker. And it just doesn't work as well the more extreme of a tonal shift they try to achieve. And the last thing that I'll say, which is not a huge negative, but it's certainly something that I think would have made the movie a little more fun for me. I get that they didn't want to directly emulate the formula of the Final Destination films with the Rube Goldberg approach, but we do have some of the deaths in this movie that take that approach, where, you know, something falls and hits this thing and it rolls into this thing and turns this on, so then somebody's head explodes or something like that. And I had much more fun with those deaths than I did with the ones that were just supernatural, out of nowhere, and random. And I think one of the reasons why horror fans have loved the Final Destination movies for so long is because that type of formula creates a fun tension in the audience. You know, if we see some characters in a movie like this leave something on a counter and the camera takes a second to focus on it, suddenly your mind starts working. You're like, what is that going to do? What's that going to cause? Is that going to fall off and, like, hit an electrical wire? Like, what the hell does that mean? What's going to happen? And that's the effect that I got for a couple of the deaths in this movie, was like, oh, wait, that's going to, oh shit. And then you had some where just, you know, the monkey does its tapping thing, and then just something immediate and random happens and somebody dies. And you're like, okay, well, that's funny, but it's not as good of an experience as the others. So rip-off be damned. If you're going to go for a Final Destination style concept like this, just fucking lean into it. I would have liked them to do that style of death for all of them. Movie would have been even more fun. Overall, guys, I had a good time with this one. It was fun, but I was very disappointed in the back half of the film. The first half, if the movie had kept that pace, this instantly would have been right up there with Companion for me, with my level of excitement. And it just kind of lost something in the last half. So I dug it. I'll definitely watch it again. I'm sure it's going to be fun to rewatch, and maybe over time it'll get a little bit better for me. But overall, first experience, pretty mixed bag. Well, that's it for this one, guys. Check out Displate in the video description below. Throw some style on those walls. If you enjoyed this video and want to check out something else, click over here for all of my other 2025 new release reviews. I'm also going to put my review of Longlegs, Osgood Perkins' previous film, up here. Like, share, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss everything in the future. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.